provide for their families and achieve the career successes that they deserve. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, thank you. Throughout history, medical research has been responsible for hundreds of groundbreaking discoveries that have improved and saved lives, established health care to become more effective and efficient, and have lowered overall health care costs. May was National Cancer Research Month, and I wanted to take a few moments today to recognize the importance of medical research and the invaluable contributions made by scientists, doctors, and researchers across the United States who are working not only to overcome cancer, but many other devastating diseases. With decades of research, cancer mortality rates have steadily declined since 1990, and today, more than 12 million Americans are cancer survivors. In fact, the number of survivors has quadrupled since the mid-1970s, and the overall 5-year survival rate for all cancers has improved to more than 65%. Decades of research and technological advances have brought us into a new era of medical care for cancer. We can now sequence all the genes of a tumor and use that information to determine the biological causes of cancer. This greater understanding of the causes of cancer has led to advances in prevention, early detection, and treatment that have saved countless lives. But despite the significant advances in research over the last few decades, much work remains to be done. More than 1.5 million Americans are expected to be diagnosed this year with cancer. It is estimated that 1 out of every 3 women and 1 out of every 2 men will develop cancer during their lifetime. In America, cancer is still the leading cause of death. But history demonstrates that with a strong commitment to medical research, we can change these statistics not only for cancer patients, but for many other patients as well. Congress's long-standing bipartisan support of the National Institute of Health has been an integral part of establishing the United States as a world leader in research and innovation. NIH is the focal point of our nation's medical research and plays a critical role in the laying of groundwork for the private sector to develop new drugs and treatments for cancer and other diseases. I have seen firsthand how medical research at NIH is being translated into new treatments with a visit to the NIH Clinical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, the nation's largest hospital devoted entirely to clinical research. The center is uniquely designed to enable researchers to work directly alongside with a wide range of specialists who deliver the best possible care to patients with the most advanced treatments available. This powerful arrangement has led to a long list of revolutionary medical discoveries, including the development of chemotherapy for cancer, the first tests to detect AIDS/HIV, and the first treatment of AIDS. Medical research leading to successful discoveries often takes years, requiring the institutional knowledge and intellect of numerous highly qualified, committed researchers. Given the vast amount of progress made over the last century and the great potential current research holds, we must not waver on America's commitment to advancing disease cures and treatments. If researchers cannot rely on consistent support from Congress, we will squander current progress and stunt America's global competitiveness. In addition, we will lose a younger generation of doctors and scientists and to alternative career paths. Our nation's researchers and scientists must know that Congress supports their work and will ensure that they have the resources needed to carry out their important work. The next century holds great promise for future discoveries. By investing in medical research, we are investing in our future. In my home state of Kansas, the bioscience industry has grown at a faster rate than the national sector since 2001. This growth opens the doors for new medical and technological advancements. Kansas has already become a leader in advancing biomedical and bioscience research. One example of this important work is the University of Kansas Cancer Center in Kansas City, which has formally applied to the National Cancer Institute to become an NCI-designated cancer center. The National Cancer Institute is a component of NIH and is our nation's principal agency for cancer research and training. Obtaining NCI designation would dramatically enhance KU Cancer Center's ability to discover, develop, and deliver innovative treatments to patients in our state and improve their quality of life. Currently, there are no NCI center designated in Kansas. And with that designation, KU Cancer Center patients would have access to the latest clinical trials and the most advanced cancer treatments close to home. Because NCI designation is the highest recognition for an academic cancer center, KU Cancer Center would also be in a better position to recruit the best and brightest researchers and scientists to develop cutting-edge treatments and cures. In addition to saving and improving lives, medical research helps create thousands of jobs and drives economic growth across the country. NIH directly supports 350,000 jobs nationwide and indirectly more than 6 million jobs across our country. Medical research also lowers costs by advancing treatment to chronic, debilitating diseases and improving early detection and wellness promotion. During a Senate Appropriations Health Subcommittee hearing last year, I asked NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins to explain how medical research at NIH could reduce health care spending. In response, Dr. Collins pointed to the potential impact of medical research on Alzheimer's. Today, annual costs related to Alzheimer's disease is roughly $180 billion, and those numbers are expected to rise roughly $1 trillion by 2050. However, medical research leading to treatment that delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease could not only bring a better quality of life to thousands of families, but also save billions of dollars. Medical research has changed the lives of millions of Americans and has the potential to impact millions more because the possibilities are endless. But in order to plan for the future, scientists and researchers need certainty. Today, Congress faces the difficult task of identifying our government's funding priorities while at the same time righting our nation's fiscal course. I will continue to advocate for fiscal responsibility, and I will also prioritize programs that effectively serve American people. Our consistent, sustained support of medical research is essential to saving and improving lives, growing our economy, and maintaining America's role as a global leader in medical innovation. This commitment will benefit our children and our country for generations to come. And most importantly, it will give us what we all desire, hope. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. And, Mr. President, I notice the lack of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, I ask the quorum be vacated for a unanimous consent request.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I have 3 unanimous consent requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of both the majority and minority leaders. I ask unanimous consent that these requests be agreed to and printed in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I note the absence of the quorum and that time be charged to the minority.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander.
Mr. President,
Senator from Maryland.
a parliamentary, I ask unanimous consent that the call of the quorum be vacated.
Without objection.
How much time does the minority have left in their time?
50 seconds.
Thank you. I yield the floor. On the minority side?
Yes.
Mr. President, I now yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Delaware, Senator Coons, who we, the women of the Senate, welcome those men who stand with us on this very, very important battle. Senator Coons has been an outstanding advocate on this and other economic empowerment issues related to women and safety in the workplace, ending sexual harassment. So, Mr. Senator has 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Mr. President.
Senator from Delaware.
Mr. President, I rise in strong support of the Paycheck Fairness Act, legislation to ensure that the women of this country earn equal pay for equal work. And I'm grateful to Senator Mikulski and many of our co-sponsors for her strong and able leadership of this important Bill S-3220, which we will take up later this afternoon. The principle of equal pay for equal work is a simple, powerful principle of basic fairness. In this year of 2012, no one should earn less for doing the same job just because of their gender. This legislation is an important step forward. It would plug holes and make critical changes in the law that would ensure the promise of equal pay that was first enshrined in our law decades ago. This legislation would deter wage discrimination by closing loopholes in the Equal Pay Act and barring retaliation against workers who disclose their wages to colleagues. Knowledge is power, Mr. President, and women who don't know their male coworkers are earning more for doing the same job can't speak up and demand to be treated fairly. My wife Annie and I are raising 3 wonderful children, all of whom are equally bright and driven and capable. And as any parent knows, one of the things you hear more than any other from your own children is that's not fair. When you pick out one for more entertainment or more opportunity, for more travel or more close family time, the first thing you hear from their sibling, but Dad, that's just not fair. And as Annie and I raise our wonderful twin boys and our tremendous and talented daughter, we try as best we can to be fair. Yet I know that my daughter Maggie, like other women and girls all across our country, will earn less than her brothers, even if she chooses the exact same career track. And Mr. President, that's just not fair. That is unacceptable. That violates our bedrock belief as a country in equality of opportunity and the American dream that if you work hard, nothing will stand in the way of your success. I am hopeful that by the time my daughter Maggie enters the workforce, we will have reduced or ended the gender pay gap in this country. I believe that by then our nation's economy will be back to full strength. But the fact is, thousands of families across my home state of Delaware, your state of West Virginia, my neighboring state of Maryland, can't afford to wait for things to get better in the economy and in our legal system. They're struggling right now to pay their bills every month, and unfair pay discrimination adds to their burdens. Women in Delaware, on average, earn 81 cents for every dollar paid to men. Over their lifetime, that means they'll earn nearly $500,000, $464,000 less than their male counterparts. Women make up just under a shade of half of Delaware's workforce. Close to 40% of married employed mothers in Delaware are their family's primary wage earners. When women are paid less than men for doing exactly the same job, it hurts whole families. Over 135,000 children in Delaware live in households that depend on their mother's earnings. I recently heard in my office from one of those mothers, Patricia from Dagsboro, Delaware. She wrote to my office urging me to support the Paycheck Fairness Act. She wrote, quote, "Without my paycheck, we could not have afforded to pay for the college tuition for 2 of our children. And if I had been paid equally for equal work, experience, and education, it's likely neither of them would have had to take out student loans in order to close the gap and make ends meet." She urged me to support the Paycheck Fairness Act. So, Mr. President, paycheck fairness has wide-ranging consequences, from covering the cost of higher education to mortgage payments to everyday bills and consumer spending. Income earned by women is a key driver, a key contributor to our economy. Some have attributed, even on this floor, the pay gap to differing priorities, or to the idea that some women choose to work fewer hours in order to spend more time with their families or to meet their family care commitments. But the facts simply do not bear out this theory. Women earn less starting the very moment they graduate from school, before they've made any choices about family or work-life balance. That shows us that pay discrimination is real. Study after study has shown it is pervasive, and in my view, and that of many of my colleagues, it needs to finally be stopped. The gender pay gap persists across all occupations and educational levels, but it is especially hard on minorities and female-headed households, which are much more likely, as a consequence, to be low income. The consequences of the gender pay gap remain even when a woman stops working, because after a lifetime of lower earnings, the average Social Security benefit for American women under 65 is about $12,000 compared to $16,000 for men of the same age. Well, if I might then, Mr. President, say in conclusion, there's not a member of this body who would dispute women are just as educated, just as trained, just as capable as their male colleagues in so many ways across our whole society. There should be then no difference in the equality of the pay that they receive for that work. I support the Paycheck Fairness Act because it will help women fight for the equal pay they've earned, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Who yields time?
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, I will wish to yield time to the gentlelady from North Carolina, Senator Hagan. I wish to yield her 5 minutes. Senator Hagan is a freshman senator, but she's certainly not new to this issue. Both in North Carolina's legislative body and here in the Senate, her work has always been for the economic empowerment of women, especially those women who stand up every day, do those jobs that require standing on your feet, and where at the end of the day they've earned less pay, will get less pension, and as she stands up for them, she'll stand, as they stand up for work, she'll stand up for them on the Senate floor. Senator Hagan, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Senator from North Carolina.
Thank you. I certainly want to congratulate Senator Mikulski for all the hard work she's done, not only on this bill, but all the bills that she has worked so hard on behalf of women in our country, and I applaud her for her efforts. But I do join with my colleagues today to discuss an issue that affects women and families across America every day, and it's the wage gap. Almost 50 years have passed since the Equal Pay Act was signed into law, and the wage gap between men and women remains wide today. It's time to bring the wages of women in line with those of their male counterparts. I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of the Paycheck Fairness Act, yet some question why we need this bill. Well, the numbers make it pretty clear. Women in the United States earn 77 cents for every dollar that men earn. In North Carolina, it's a little better, but not equal. Women earn 81 cents for every dollar earned by men doing the same work, the same job. Over the course of 1 year, women in North Carolina experienced nearly $8,000 lost in wages. That's $8,000 from what her male counterparts earn. For that $8,000, a woman could spend for her family an extra $110 a week for 73 weeks for groceries. She could buy another 2,200 gallons of gas at $3.60 a gallon. If women were paid the same as men for the same work, these are just a few of the expenses that they would be able to afford more easily. The wage gap is not isolated in one industry either. It exists across virtually every sector of our economy. The wage gap exists regardless of education level. Even in many cases, the most educated women are paid less for the same work. And it exists regardless of a woman's personal choices, such as becoming a mother. Working mothers should not pay a penalty for having children. Moms Rising in North Carolina, it's a group in North Carolina, told me that in the last few months, they have heard from women across the state, from Wilmington, from Durham, from Greensboro, and from Raleigh, that once these women actually had children, they got overlooked for promotions, overlooked for pay raises, and overlooked for the projects that they wanted to work on. However, this collective group of women are afraid to speak out about their wage discrimination because in this economy, they are worried about getting fired from the job that they need to support their families. Yesterday, I met with women and small business owners in Charlotte to discuss the Paycheck Fairness Act. My visit with those fantastic women reinforced for me the importance of this bill, the Paycheck Fairness Act. One woman brought her young son with her to the event, and they both wore T-shirts that each had a number on the front. The mom's shirt said 94, and the son's shirt said 50. If earnings continue at the slow pace that they are going now, those numbers signify the ages that that mom and that son will be when pay equality is achieved in our country. Sadly, at the rate we're going, most of us in the Senate will not live to see that day. And this wage gap has real consequences, not just for women, but for their children too. In North Carolina alone, women head over 500,000 households. Women and families' economic security is put at risk when they are paid less than men for performing the same job. Later today, I'll be voting to help close this gap, to help bring the wages of women in line with those of their male counterparts. And I'm hopeful that the petty partisan gamesmanship does not get in the way of a bipartisan issue that both Democrats and Republicans, men and women, overwhelmingly support. In a recent poll, 81% of men and 87% of women supported having a law to provide women more tools to get fair pay in the workplace. This poll also showed support for such a law from 77% of Republicans and 87% of independents and 91% of Democrats. So with such widespread approval, we should be able to address this issue the right way. We need paycheck fairness to prohibit employers from retaliating against employees who discuss salary information with their coworkers. We need paycheck fairness to strengthen the legal remedies available for women to ensure that they can be compensated for pay discrimination. And we need paycheck fairness to provide businesses, especially small ones, assistance with equal pay practices. On the eve of the anniversary of the Equal Pay Act, we need to close the loopholes that allow pay discrimination to happen. The Paycheck Fairness Act would do just that by helping women successfully fight
Senator
for
has
equal
used
pay.
5 minutes.
If I can have 30 seconds.
Is there objection?
Bill the gentlelady an additional 2 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. President,
Without objection.
equal pay for equal work, to me, is just basic common sense. And I hope that this body can come together to address this disparity that exists in North Carolina and around our country. Senator Mikulski, thank you again for the work that you are doing on behalf of this very, very important bill that is truly going to make a difference in the lives of women throughout our country as well as their families. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, this is the time allocated for both Republicans and Democrats to speak, and we invite our Republican colleagues to come, and even within the Republican Party, we know there are those who agree with us and those who don't. For those who agree, we'd love to hear their voices, and for those who don't, well, let's have a debate. Let's take a look at what are some of the issues being raised as a criticism of the bill. We're ready to talk about it. I have heard some of the most outrageous things on cable TV about why we shouldn't pass this bill. One was accusing us that this will undermine small business. And what I would like to be able to say is that small business has protections under the Equal Pay Act. Under the existing law, which this would not change, the Equal Pay Act already exempts small business that makes less than $500,000 in annual revenue per year. So it keeps the Equal Pay Act exemption intact. And I just want to say that we also have the support of the Women's Business Chamber of Commerce. This is a chamber of commerce created where of small business owners, and they support this bill. So we don't believe that that's a valid argument. Now, there's this other argument going around that for some reason that if we pass the equal pay, if we pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, that somehow or another we are going to lower the wages of what men make. Mr. President, that is absolutely one of the most ridiculous rhetorical twist and turn arguments. It's not factual and it's not legal. It is illegal now to remedy wage discrimination by reducing wages of other employees. It is, I'll quote, it is illegal under the other labor protection laws, and I don't mean labor like in union, I mean labor like in workers. It is illegal to remedy wage discrimination by reducing wages of other employees. Now, the Paycheck Fairness Act doesn't alter any other affirmative defense available to employers. Employers may still pay different wages to male or female employees if it's based on seniority or quantity of production. You know, like if you make more hubcaps if you're a guy on an assembly line than women, fine. But we find that's no longer true in the information age economy. Equal pay, I just want to say again, is not only a woman's issue, it's a family issue. And for men in the workplace, sometimes for we women, we find out that we're discriminated against by great guys at the water cooler who tell us where it is. Now, what we need to know, or what people need to know, is that right now it is illegal to fire someone if they make an inquiry about how much they're making and how much their male counterpart is making. It is illegal or they can be subject to all kinds of harassment and humiliation. You ought to hear some of the horror stories we hear from women just because they wanted to know, George, how much you were making. So we thank the good men that have supported us. They have been often business whistleblowers where they've told us what they're making so that they know that we were working as hard. We worked as hard to get the education to do the job. We worked that hard on the job, but we continue to have to work hard to get equal pay for equal work. So I want to make clear once again that this legislation will not result in a pay cut for men. There's also, I think, a really bona fide question, which is, why are we doing paycheck fairness? Didn't we solve these issues in Lilly Ledbetter? Well, paycheck fairness was a down payment on this because it kept the courthouse door open. Paycheck fairness makes it harder to discriminate in the first place. Right now, as I said, employers have the ability to retaliate against workers who share salary information. Ledbetter did not address this issue. Paycheck fairness does. Women can now, under paycheck fairness, would be able to sue for punitive damages. Lilly Ledbetter did not address this. This would deal with that. There are a variety of things that I can elaborate on, but I note that one of the real champions for justice, civil rights, and the empowerment, especially the economic empowerment of women, is my colleague from Michigan, Senator Stabenow. I now yield Senator Stabenow 7 minutes and thank her for her long-standing advocacy and the way she's raised her voice for those who don't often have a voice in high places of power. Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say thank you to the champion. We have just been hearing from the champion, not only in the United States Senate, but in the Congress on so many issues that relate to empowerment for women and equality for all people to have a chance to succeed in our economy. And certainly whether it's preventative health for women or if it's a Paycheck Fairness Act, I want to thank Senator Mikulski for leading the way and being the person that we look to, and I'm proud to stand with Senator Mikulski today on the floor of the United States Senate. You know, Mr. President, since our founding, our country has been a destination for those that seek equal treatment and equal opportunity. Across the world, America is known as the land of opportunity, and I'm very proud that we have that label. Our hard work and ingenuity built the country, brick by brick, city by city, and my home state of Michigan was right in the middle of it, building the tools, the vehicles that built our country and that frankly built the middle class of our country. Those looking for new opportunity, those with entrepreneurial spirit have always been welcome here in America. And people still make the journey to this country in search of a better life. We tell the world that everyone has equal opportunity, that if you put in just as much hard work as your neighbor, you'll earn a decent living and be able to provide for your family. But that's only half true, Mr. President. Everyone can work hard, everyone can be successful, but for some reason, it is acceptable that women do not need to be paid as much as men for the exact same work. And this is unacceptable. And that's what this legislation is all about. Nationally, women make 77 cents for every dollar a man makes for the exact same job. And in Michigan, the numbers are even worse. Women make 74 cents on every dollar for the exact same job. And I've received countless letters from constituents describing how this affects their lives and their families' lives. Teresa from Detroit is a single mom with 2 daughters. One daughter's in college. Teresa tries to help her out as much as she can, but she gets paid less than her male co-workers for doing the same work, so it's tough. Pamela from Romulus, Michigan, is the sole breadwinner in her house, supporting her husband, a disabled Vietnam veteran, and their children. She works at a corporation and took over a man's job. Then the company changed the title so they could pay her less. Craig from Lowell wrote in to tell me his story. And this, by the way, is a common story in Michigan over the last number of years. He lost his job in 2008 because of the recession. His wife had to support their entire family of 4. The family had to go on food assistance, something they never thought in their wildest dreams they would have to do, because Craig's wife has been working at the same company for 23 years but hasn't gotten a raise in the last 4 years and makes several dollars an hour less than her male counterparts. Melissa from Ann Arbor is the sole breadwinner in her family of 4. She figured out that if she were paid the same as her male colleagues, she would take home an extra $1,000 a month after taxes. That $1,000, she said, would make their family more stable. It would let Melissa and her husband take the children on trips, give them new opportunities, allow them to be enrolled in sports, and save for college and for retirement, that extra $1,000 a month. Cheryl from Okemos had to take a second job just to make as much as her male counterparts at her day job, and it has cut down on how much time she can spend with her family. So she's got a second job just so she can make as much as her colleagues that work one job. She's got 2 jobs. So now the trade-off for her is, as a mom, spending less time with her family. She's able to feed and clothe her children, she says, but she says she's missing out on watching them grow up. Also a very important value we talk about all the time on the floor of the Senate in terms of values for families. Linda from South Lyon wrote about her lifetime of being discriminated against just because she's a woman. Over her career, she has consistently made less than men in the same industry with the same job description. One executive even told her that he only hires women because they work harder and he can pay them less. They work harder, but he should not be able to pay them less. Sandra from Marshall has worked as an engineer at the same company for 28 years. She's been rated as one of the company's best performers. Despite this, she has never risen to the level where she earns bonuses or a better pension, a level in her company that is dominated by men. She has countless people she has hired, and she has trained, and she has watched them pass her by. These stories are real. Jennifer from the west side of Michigan was a university teacher and an athletic coach. She was the head coach of a varsity women's team and taught 6 classes. She saw men in the same position make more money while they taught fewer classes, and saw them receive tenure with master's degrees while she was required to work towards a PhD to be eligible for the same tenure. She was denied tenure despite good performance evaluations, yet a male assistant coach at the university was given tenure without a PhD because he had a family. These are real stories. This is about families, economic opportunities, security for families. Mr. President, America is known as the land of opportunity, and people still make the journey to our great country in search of a better life. Everyone has an equal chance to work hard, and everyone can be successful. But not everyone gets the same opportunity to be successful. And women in Michigan make 74 cents for every dollar a man earns for the exact same job. There are so many families in Michigan struggling right now. Things shouldn't be harder on them just because their primary breadwinners are women. It's just not right. Middle-class families need the economic security. That's why we need the Paycheck Fairness Act. We've made strides moving forward, but right now this isn't, Mr. President, complicated. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Equal pay for equal work. We talk the talk all the time. It's time to walk the walk and to pass this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I yield the gentleman from Illinois 5 minutes and thank him for his just persistent advocacy on this issue. I know you were one of the people, or part of leadership, who said we've got to really address this as we approach the 49th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act. We thank you for your work and we thank you for your voice today.
Senator from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me just say to those who are following this debate, if you go to the dictionary and look up the word persistent, you will find a picture of Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland. She has been our leader on so many important issues. The very first bill signed by President Barack Obama, and she remembers the day as I do, we were standing there when he signed the Lilly Ledbetter Law, which protected the principle of equal pay for equal work by allowing workers to pursue pay discrimination cases beyond the arbitrary, unreasonable window that had been set up by the Supreme Court. And when President Obama signed that first bill, his first bill as President of the United States, he handed the first pin of that signing to Senator Barbara Mikulski. It was entirely appropriate. No one has dedicated more of her professional and public life to this cause of justice than Senator Mikulski. It's been nearly 50 years after the passage of the Equal Pay Act, and we have to ask ourselves, well, how are things going in America when it comes to equal pay? It turns out that when it comes to the managerial positions, women and men, women make 81 cents for every dollar paid to a man when they're managers in a business. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the gap grows even larger, 77 cents for your daughter as opposed to $1 for your son when you look at the entire working population. As a father of a daughter and a son, that is unfair. According to the Joint Economic Committee, women in my state of Illinois on average earn about 78 cents for every dollar paid to a man. What does that add up to over a lifetime? Over $480,000 in wages that are denied to women for doing exactly the same work as a man. Money that can be used to pay the mortgage, to buy the groceries, to put kids through school, and maybe even fill the gas tank, denied to women day after day, week after week, month after month, because of basic discrimination in the workplace. We can't ignore this gender wage gap. It's just too large and unfortunately shrinking too slowly. The Paycheck Fairness Act, we'll have a chance to vote on, would narrow that pay gap by clarifying that gender difference, the difference between a man or a woman, is not an adequate reason to differentiate pay. It also guarantees that women facing discrimination have access to the same remedies under the law as men, and under the law as are afforded to racial and ethnic groups facing discrimination. But I'm afraid to say, and I hope I'm wrong, that this afternoon about 2:30, when the roll call is taken, it will be a partisan roll call. There will be Democrats in favor of ending this discrimination, and virtually all Republicans, and I hope that I'm wrong about this, are going to vote against it. Instead, the Republicans want to bring a different bill to the floor. I'm not going to dwell on it, other than to say that I like Senator Rubio. He's a friend of mine from Florida, but his bill is a very bad idea. It is called the RAISE Act, and just simply stated, it innocently says an employer who is party to a collective bargaining agreement with a union would be allowed to give a unilateral pay raise to selected employees of that employer's choice. Well, who's against a pay raise? Until you take a closer look at it. And what it allows the managers and employers to do is to pick and choose among employees for these pay raises, and sadly, without any basis other than their personal decision. I'm afraid I know where that leads. It leads, unfortunately, to the same kind of wage discrimination we seem to see today between men and women. It may lead to nepotism. It may lead to kind of favorable treatment for some employees for reasons that might have nothing to do with the workplace. This sounds so innocent, but it's not. Under current law, unions and employers can agree to link pay increases and bonuses to performance, and that's the way it should be. In fact, many collective bargaining agreements already provide for merit-based pay increases. The Rubio approach is not good news for workers across America. It is no help when it comes to women across America facing wage discrimination. This isn't the first time or the only time that we've had these battles on gender equity on the floor of the Senate, on a question of whether or not we're going to have basic funding for health care for women across America, Title X. For over 40 years, we've been committed to that, and yet we face the elimination of Title X funding from the Republican leadership in the past. In fact, they threatened to shut down the government rather than provide this health care that women need. I also think that many can remember on the floor here when Senator Blunt of Missouri just a few weeks back filed an amendment to the transportation bill allowing any employer or insurance company to deny health insurance for any essential or preventive health care service that the employer objected to because of his undefined religious or moral convictions, for any reason, to deny health coverage to an employee. Well, we defeated that amendment, the Blunt Amendment of Missouri. It was another attempt to try to give to employers a way to discriminate against employees and, in many cases, against the women who work for them. We have tried our very best to push through bipartisan legislation, which in the past has passed overwhelmingly by a voice vote. The Violence Against Women Act. Have you visited a domestic violence shelter? Have you seen a woman who's been a victim of domestic violence? I have. In Champaign, Illinois, sitting across the table from me. There she was with her baby on her lap and a big black eye. She'd been punched in the face by her husband, and she came to the shelter looking for a helping hand. You can't look into the face, the teary-eyed face of that mother, and think that this is not a good cause, a just cause. And it turned out to be a political battle here as to whether or not we were going to pass the Violence Against Women Act. We did, and I'm glad we did. Stalled over in the House of Representatives because they refused to move that forward so we can provide this kind of protection. Time and time again, the basic legislation to protect women, families, and children used to be done on a bipartisan basis, used to be done unanimously with supporters from both sides of the aisle, turned into partisan political bickering. Let's hope that when it comes to this bill, this question of fairness in the paychecks of women and men across America, that maybe I'll just be flat out wrong. Maybe at 2:30 we're going to see a return to that thrilling era in the Senate history when Democrats and Republicans stood together for fairness and justice. We'll give our colleagues a chance at 2:30. I thank Senator Mikulski for bringing this important and historic matter to the floor. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, I ask that the call of the quorum be vacated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I now